Okay, so once again, thank you so much for everyone who has been able to attend. Today marks the second day of the Neurathon, and we're going to have the Navigating Conference Culture and Understanding Professional Communication Etiquettes. So, as the host of this event, I'm delighted to introduce our esteemed speakers who will give you the insights on this journey. First, we'll have Nikita, who's a passionate queer disabled student hailing from India. She works remotely as a research assistant at NYU and Ashoka University in India. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology, English literature, and journalism, and she aspires to become a speech language pathologist and developmental cognitive neuroscientist. The research interests revolve around infant toddler studies, poverty, and its impact on brain development and cognition. She's also a co founder of two remarkable open science initiatives. One is Project Underrepresented Students of Psychology and Allied Sciences, and which she co founded alongside Mona. With strong commitment to advocating for these underrepresented populations, she brings a unique perspective to this discussion. Our second speaker is Muna, who is a postbaccalaureate full-time research intern at Axonet Brain Research Laboratory in India and a remote research assistant at Stanford Psychophysiology Lab. Muna is an aspiring developmental science researcher with a keen interest in studying early social cognition from the perspective of morality. He explores how emotions, social hierarchies, memories, and early life experiences influence the developmental and social relationships and interneural synchrony. So, Muna consistently advocates for open science practices, accessibility, and transparency in research. Together, they're going to bring a lot of knowledge and experience to the workshop. And so I hope you pay as much attention as you can and feel free to ask questions at the end of the event. Before I pass it over to them, this is a reminder to you to kindly stay muted during while they're speaking. This is to maintain order. Leave your questions in the chat for now, and we will have an open forum for Q&A towards the end of the session. So I'll pass this over to you, Mona.
Hi, thanks so much for the amazing introduction. I'm just going to quickly share my slides. Let me know if you're able to see them. Are you able to see them?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so perfect. So thank you so much again for the introduction. Just want to make a slight change. I co-founded two open science initiatives. One is called the Project Dispass. I'll talk a little bit more about it ahead, and another initiative called Diversity in Academia with Munna. And I just wanted to clarify that in the introduction. But thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you so much to everybody that's in the session here. I'm super happy to be here again because last time it was an amazing expression of sessions, so I thought I'd come again here. So to give you a little introduction, which has already been done, I'm a non-binary disabled researcher from India. I'm an aspiring pediatric speech language pathologist, and I'm also hoping to go into developmental cognitive neuroscience. And I'm currently involved in NYU, Ashoka, and I've been previously involved with a lot of other organizations. To tell you about a little bit of my research interests, I am specifically interested in infants, toddlers, preschoolers, and I'm interested in understanding how poverty and inequalities can have an impact on the brain and the cognition of infants and toddlers. To go about with the introductions on the open science initiatives that I've been a part of, I'm the founder of Project Dispass, which is the underrepresented students of psychology and allied sciences. I'm just going to go a little bit on it and not a lot because I want to focus a lot more on how we can enter an academy as a junior researcher than about initiatives. But this initiative is founded and is very close to me because coming from the global south, research is not very it's not gone ahead and with the kind of Western countries have. And so we are trying to look into how we can train researchers, we can give that exposure and opportunities. And so this is where we came up. So I think Munna can go next about the DI initiative.
Yeah, right. Hello, everybody. So taking from where Nikita stopped, so Nikita and I co-founded the hashtag Diversity in Academia initiative, which is again another open science initiative focused on uplifting developmental psychology researchers across the globe, especially the underrepresented community, including the global south. We plan to host a lot of activities and events which would help us bring spotlight to a lot of researchers whose research are not really coming up front in terms of developmental psychology and allied sciences. So we have started almost a year ago, but then we have so many other plans ahead for big plans, I must say, for this particular initiative. So if you are somebody who is interested in developmental sciences, including development and neuroscience, diversity in academia should be one of the places that you should be in. We can move ahead, Nikita.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. My laptop's stuck. Yeah.
Right. So this brings to my introduction. Thank you, Ivy, for the wonderful introduction, and you mentioned a lot of things about me. But if I must introduce myself, I'm queer and I'm here and I'm in academia. So and I'm an aspiring developmental cognitive neuroscientist, or I can also say I'm an aspiring developmental scientist. My research interests my research interests are mostly in again with infant and toddler population, but specifically I'm interested in the morality, like the whole origin of morality, starting from infancy to pre-adolescence. Particularly, I'm interested in interneural synchrony, which is an interesting concept wherein we try to look at how two people's brains are syncing at the same time. I'm particularly interested about the interneural synchrony between mothers and children, or parents and children. And I also am interested in social relationships and hierarchies, how infants and toddlers understand that. So this is another picture of helper and hinder event, which is another paradigm which we follow generally while understanding infants' morality. So next slide, Nikita.
Okay, so navigating conferences as a junior researcher. So these are two pictures that I had taken when I was in my first year undergrad. And I remember that I was all curious about research and I was all curious about how conferences work. And I tagged along with the senior, and it was so overwhelming because I didn't know the pointers like, oh, hey, we could talk to some people, we could, mark certain responses that we wanted to one question. And so I was very nervous. So there are things that I wish somebody told me that I could tell you if you're starting out new is plan and schedule things. Usually conferences have a schedule in mind and they'll always share it with you a few days prior or weeks prior. Mark them. Try to look into, sessions that you're interested in, maybe poster sessions that you might be wanting to be a part of, or oral presentations, and just mark them so you can remember to be there. Because I think conference is like a museum, but with the time where, you miss out one and then you missed it out unless they have an option of recording. And I remember as an undergrad first year, getting all lost in it because I didn't plan enough. Second is nobody told me that it's okay to approach presenters. Like right now, as a researcher, I cannot tell you how much, it gives me joy when I get feedback from, attendees telling me, oh, I loved your research question, or this was nice. Can you talk more about it? And I wish I could do the same as an undergrad. So it's okay to approach presenters and it's okay to have questions. I think it's great that you have questions because it always improves research and it's also good for networking. And the third point is keep a bag ready with essentials. I think because I was so overwhelmed, I did not carry my water bottle and I had a notepad with writing notes down. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I have so much to take in, so much to do. But I think it's so important to just keep yourself hydrated, take a little bit breaks every now and then, and also have things to note down. So in case there are concepts that you didn't understand and you want to Google up and go back, you could always go back and have this written. So these are some things that I wanted to mention. When you talk about remote presentations, which is something that the pandemic brought along, which I think is a good thing, is that the hybrid meetings. So these are two screenshots of two hybrid events that I was a part of. And these are some events that were very close to me because it actually opened up a lot for me conferences wise. And it's really cool how hybrid conferences have been working around trying to get people to network during the conference and during the pandemic and just trying to get that personal human touch. So one of them was that during a roundtable session, I just took a screenshot and just wanted to also put out, not post, but just put out the best poster award that I got. So the two things that I did differently when I was attending this hybrid presentation was that I planned and scheduled things. I made sure that I was on time with things. I marked it down. And then I also used social media, which is a tool that I don't think I knew for the longest time could help me get and understand about conferences. A lot of conferences have hashtags that you can use. And usually when you use those hashtags on Twitter or any other social networking sites, you can literally find out more knowledge and posters and information about it. And that's something I didn't realize. There are a lot of other sessions that I could have missed out if I didn't use this hashtag. So this hashtag helped me in finding networking. I could retweet things. I could reach out to people. I was also aware of a few more conferences and other sessions.
Right. So these are the kind of work that I majorly did. These are three different events that happened at three different years. In fact, the first one that you see is, again, it's not to boast, but this was one of the projects that I did with a couple of my peers in college, like during my final year of undergrad. And we happened to win the best poster award for that presentation. And this was again another conference that happened in India, and it was totally remote because it was during the pandemic. And further, my second work was on again, it was the first international conference that I took part in. And I honestly, having had the experience of navigating through Indian conferences, I was a little bit confused where to start and how to start. And if I might compare between my first experience of an Indian conference while that of an international conference, things changed a lot for me, especially with the way I present my posters. For example, the second event, the ISDP conference that happened last year in 2022, there I presented a poster which is kind of sort of similar to the third one that you see, the one with the orange color poster that you see. So the first poster was very dark, and it was very under the pale tone of color palette. And I realized that because we as undergrads, we are always forced, or like we are expected to stick by the rules of APA guidelines. And it was a first time experience for me to get out of it and still try something that is creative enough, and yet convey my point and my research. So like that's something that I unlearned myself during my first international conference. And again, like Nikta mentioned about the previous roundtable session, ISDP also had situations wherein we can interact with researchers no matter where they fall in the hierarchy. We can contact them over their chat box and private sessions. I was fortunate enough to have talked to a couple of professors and also a couple of PhD students who I was very interested in listening to about their work. And the last one is a completely remote poster that was again presented at SIPS, which is society. It is the conference, annual conference by Society for Improvement in Psychological Sciences. And this was an open science initiative that I'm part of, which is called Psych Art Stats Club. So I presented a poster on behalf of them, and this was a totally new area for me because this is the first time I'm presenting some work that is from the open science area of work. I will discuss more about open science and all those kind of things in the upcoming slides. So these are my experiences about different conferences that happened and different things that I learned through these three courses conferences.
So coming to networking and communication, I think I've spoken a lot about Twitter at this point because Twitter, I think, has been life-changing for me. I also remember last year when I was a part of the session, I spoke about finding opportunities on Twitter, getting networking, and how to build Twitter. So I can't help but give you a screenshot of how my feed looks like, or rather how my profile looks like. I think it's important to use certain keywords because when you're finding people in your field, or when someone is following you back, or just following you in case, needs to know what is the research that you're involved in and what are the kind of projects that you might be in. So it's always nice to have this written. So Munna, this is you want to tell
Yeah,
something about this?
this is my profile. This is a screenshot of my profile. And like Nikita mentioned, it's always great to mention hashtags of the keywords of the kind of work that you're interested in doing. So it will be easy for us to navigate through people who have had similar hashtags on their profile. I get a lot of professors and a lot of people in the academia won't really put hashtags like that, but then still a huge bunch of people still network through this medium. So I think it's worthy enough to put hashtags on your profile. It had certainly helped me. And about Twitter again, Nikita introduced me to academic Twitter. I was all in LinkedIn all before that. So I joined like pretty much like in 2021 end. And I also happen to have formed a lot of connections, especially as an international student in academia. It has always been challenging to find people who share similar interests or people who are going through the same turmoil of being an international student and also post-bac research assistant. So networking is always helpful, and Twitter is one of the best spaces to be in if you want to be in academia. Yeah.
So some tips and tricks, something that we wanted to talk about with Twitter is that create a profile and add keywords. One of the reasons why we say add keywords is because, when, like I said, one of them is following you. And second one is when you're actually searching on Twitter using keywords and you're trying to find out, say, follow some professors, or you want to follow people that are maybe in the branch of your area, then it's easier to find them using those keywords. And so I just put these little symbols because I feel like it's easier to find it's easier to understand how to navigate Twitter, because it seems like everyone that joins Twitter just feels it overwhelming and then they're kind of lost. So I thought it's important to mention with these symbols. Second is hashtags. Using hashtags is the way for social media in general. But on Twitter, I think hashtags is the way we go about when you're trying to also get the algorithm to send you opportunities or have a feed that could be filled up with everything around academia. I mean, when you say academic Twitter, there's not a different platform. It's a platform because they're following people in certain ways. So I use a lot of hashtags, especially because I want to find resources. Like, for example, I was a musician, so I just wanted to find somebody doing some work in a certain lab or a certain research area, and I would use that. Now, something that retweet is a lot of people don't understand is that retweet is like sharing something in your profile, and usually it is a great opportunity to do that because you're telling your audience that, hey, this is something I found interesting, so let's reshare it. For example, I reshared something about a lot of conference updates that I'm not a part of currently right now, that I'm not in person in, but these are something that I think my network would benefit from. So I would reshare. So my whole me all about that particular area. And so that's how the academic Twitter gets formed. So one of the examples is this, where I'm not following this, by the way, conference. I'm not even there in person. But because my connection is following it, I got through this hashtag and I actually clicked on this hashtag and I realized there's a bunch of presentations and there are amazing people out there who use Twitter to communicate about what's going on and live tweet things. And I was able to understand what are the kind of new trends in the field, what is the kind of information that's going on. I was even able to contact someone in the DM and ask them if there's any way I could access it. So I started using hashtags in such a way because I think pandemic really brought this new amazing features. So we wanted to stop here and just see in case there are any questions. If not, we could move or have the questions at the end as well. So we can just move to the other topic. Anything you all wish, let us know.
Nikita, there seems to be a couple of questions in the chat box.
Okay. Oh.
The first one says how to make the most out of these conferences, question mark. Also, is attending conferences something that you should highlight in your college applications? Why or why not?
Oh, so wait, could you repeat the question again? A lot of
The first
questions.
part of the question is how to make the most out of these conferences. That's the first part of the question.
Do you want to go first or do I go first?
You can go first for sure.
Okay, great. So for me, like I said, conference is like a museum filled with a lot of information, but with time. So what I would do is schedule things and try to be to as many sessions as I can, because what happens for me when I go to a conference, or rather I've attended mostly conferences from the pandemic because my research interest got narrowed down even more as I graduated from my bachelor's. So what I would do is just have a list of sessions that I want to attend and keep a note of the time, the room, or anything specific details. And then I would try to make sure to be reaching out to them if I had any questions, stay in contact with them. Usually you will have breaks or something called social hours, or even poster sessions are the best way actually to communicate and network. So I would use that opportunity to get on touch with them and ask them, oh, I like your research and I'm new to research and I don't know much about it. Could you explain me this more? And it goes a long way. Like you might even find a collaborator that you might be working in the next few years, or you might just find a friend there. So honestly, I would tell you that you should just have everything planned and just try to be there in all sessions, keep a note of things, and see if you want to stay in touch, either share emails, socials. Usually they have a QR code for all these things, so that's how I would make the most of it.
Right. I think that covered most of the part. And yeah, that's so true. Like for me also, like when I graduated from a university, my research interest was way different. And more about it will be there in the upcoming slides about my journey. And but I must say that after graduating from college to where I stand right now, my research interest has changed a lot. So depending on that, the way I approach conferences also kind of changed. For example, initially I was attending conferences with the intention of experimenting myself, as in like just getting into conferences on varied topics, or even apart from conferences, like at least being updated about conferences and what kind of research happens around in different areas. So that time my focus was more on experimenting myself with like listening to content like that. And later, now that I've narrowed my research interest, it's still again right now it's stationary, but we never know. Maybe next month my something else might also interest me on top of this. So then again, it also depends on the kind of work that I'm interested then to choose what kind of conferences and situations I should be putting myself in. Ultimately, it's anywhere that you can learn the most and also learning the best information available, like as in getting the best information available is also something that you're looking to. So for that, definitely narrowing down what kind of things that you want to attend among lot of options that are there is definitely a good place to start. So I would say it totally depends upon what you would like to know and learn more about. And about the whether this has to be highlighted in college applications or not, personally, I don't have an experience attending a conference as a high school student. I never done that. And also since I'm an international student, my education has been in a whole different paradigm altogether. So there, I think I mean I'm speculating. There must be people with better more experiences about that to answer this question. But I think it won't hurt anybody. Because it's also a form of learning, and after all, if you have attended a conference, it also means like how much committed you are towards a certain niche, and or like even if you have looked into multiple topics or multiple areas, it still shows that you have experimented things and have come to a conclusion. So it can give multiple perspectives to your applications, but I'm not really completely sure about that.
I
Nikita,
just wanted to
do
add
you?
to Munna's point that it's amazing that at a high school level, you're able to navigate and understand
Yeah,
these things. I think it'll be
yeah,
great to highlight that because, like Munna said, I think it's great. It shows that you are keen about the field, that you are, engaging with it, and you're having some sense of understanding that this is where you go to find researchers or find what presentations. I think it's good to highlight. I mean, as an undergrad, when I started my CV, which is something so new to me, I remember talking about all the conferences that I attended just because I was so proud of how I have been committed to research. So, is there any question, Munna? Could you just read anything else?
Well, there are so many questions. Another one is, how do you go about when you begin preparing for a poster presentation? They require you to submit an abstract initially, and they encourage that the research topic be original and creative. How does your research go about in such a case? Literature research, and what are some other resources we can sort to?
Do you want to go first?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. So again, the thing is, it also depends totally on where you stand in terms of your career or education. I myself, like I said, I started off presenting my research in an actual conference when I was in final year of college. Until then, I was trying to still work on sorting like making a very good foundation for me in research. And I'm still learning. I'm still learning at different things at different places. So I would say to definitely ask for an abstract, but it's also about the idea that you're pitching in. But that often a lot of academics also believe that these ideas should also emerge out of gaps in research. I mean, what have been done and what should be done next is always the question that academicians are striving towards. So I think if you immerse yourself in literature, that will be the best place to start. But definitely depending on the conference's theme, as that is if the conference has any theme, um, you can actually see if there is any particular specific niche that you're interested in, and then take it from here. For example, if right now if I were to submit an abstract for a conference on child development, I know the conference is on child development. So next I would move to like what specific questions that align with my research interest. I'll look into that, and then based on that, I'll draft a particular abstract or a study. So yeah, Nikita.
I think those are similar points. So I think what we can do is we can pause the questions for now. We can move ahead and then we can come back to all the questions because it seems like there are going to be a lot of questions. And we
Yeah.
have a few things that we want to talk about in terms of communication. So we're going to go ahead with it. So yeah, Munna, go ahead.
Right. So here comes the one of the most biggest blessing in all both of our lives, in fact, and a lot of other post-bac researchers, especially international students. So there's something called emailing. Cold emailing is nothing but you emailing people left and right who does work uh, who does work on things like that interest you majorly. So I personally started my journey in cold emailing like in 2021. Me and Nikita started cold emailing more or less the same time, and it's been lucky that we have been together in this. And so my cold emailing style is also inspired from Nikita's, and we have changed each other's cold emailing template also according to each other's suggestions and thoughts about the current structure. So one thing that we both will stress on is like I think next slide would be you can play next. Yeah. So the cold emailing should definitely start with like who you are. Who are you? The question you have to address the question, who are you? This also includes like your name, your basic affiliation. And one thing a lot of people miss out on is like what you want to do next. For example, if when you are somebody who is interested in academia or somebody who is like looking forward to collaborating with people or learning more or upskilling yourself, you definitely have to tell where you stand right now and where you think you want to go next. For example, if you're a high schooler, probably you want to say like, hey, I'm so and so, I'm doing so and so things, and I'm interested in these things, and I would probably want to major in this particular subject, or I would like to major in this particular university for this or whatever. However you want to take ahead, or if you want to go specific, for example, if you are an undergraduate student, you can particularly mention like the labs that you are planning to probably go with respect to like even in I think in terms of if for example if you are emailing a particular lab, you can also mention like their labs work interests you the most. And next is that also includes like why you are emailing them, right? I mean, you should have clear specific reasoning why you're emailing them. Like for example, when I was emailing, I said I want to I'm an aspiring PhD student, and I am interested in developmental psychology and those kind of niche. And I mentioned that your research work is very much similar to mine. Like I want to work on that area. And telling what you want to learn out of it is also a very amazing space to be in. For example, for me, it was the exposure. I didn't have any developmental psychology exposure, or I didn't have anything to do with international academy at that point in time. So for me, learning also included upskilling myself in terms of programming, and also with respect to literature review and all those kind of things. And uh, along with cold emailing, something that you always have to attach is a CV and a cover letter. CV also has to be drafted on point. You have to avoid repetitions, and you want to mention each and every single thing that you have done. And for example, like one thing that I very recently learned is like even if you have done some research related work as part of your curriculum in college or school, or even your post like your external experiences, lab experience, something like that, you definitely should put that as like presentations. It's also an academic presentation after all, because you are presenting something and you're also getting review out of it. So that's also something that you have to look into. And cover letter is an amazing place to express your passion and interest in the work, the kind of work they do, and also like what you want to do next and what you want to learn more. I personally you have used cover letter for some situations, but some places I just resorted to my email itself, because initially when I was starting, I didn't really know how to navigate through that, so I just kept it very short, and I didn't want to come off too hard on people, like especially considering they are academicians and you put somebody on a pedestal. But please don't worry about that. You can always email them and mention you would want to actually present your authentic self than like the most humble self, if that makes sense. So yeah, next.
I just wanted to add a quick point to this. So when you're navigating with the conference part, cold emailing becomes very important. So I remember during when I was scrolling through Twitter and I missed out on being in person with this conference, and unfortunately this conference was in hybrid. it. So I sadly missed out without realizing that, there was a conference happening. So, I think there was another question about it, like how do you navigate about conferences? I think I navigated it through Twitter. Honestly, if I'm speaking, I only realized there were a bunch of amazing conferences in the branch of interest that I have in research was through Twitter, and because of following networks and stuff. So about cold emailing, what I did was I cold emailed someone who had never spoken to me, but I just knew them because their poster was there and I followed them. And I just cold emailed them and I said, hey, I saw your poster, on Twitter, because sometimes, researchers put their posters on Twitter just so they could get more feedback and questions and also networking, like I said. So I cold emailed them and I realized that, I added the poster and I told them, this is poster title on your Twitter and I really loved it, would love to know more about it. Could we get on a call? So I think being straight about what you want and also giving some introduction and having some context could help. I would say cold email could get a little lengthy. So look into not making it lengthy, but like keep it to the point, but also remember that you are making your first impression. So I would say cold emailing is like a quick pitch, like if I was going in person talking to someone, I'm going to give them a quick pitch saying, hey, so my name is this, I am from this background and I'm interested in this and I love your poster. And so I think cold emailing is that form, but in written. And I think cold emailing is amazing for research opportunities, for conferences. I think it's a nice way to just go about just trying to nudge in and see if there's a possibility of just meeting new people. So that's another point I wanted to add. Mona, do you want to say something?
Yeah, right. So a lot of things like definitely communicating over email is a very good place to start, but sometimes you would want to ask questions following what they have to say. So one thing that you always need to feel, one thing that you can actually think about doing is also to feel free to tell that like you want to get on a call with them if you actually feel like you would find benefit out of it. As in like no matter if it's for while seeking clarity on, for example, Nikita said about certain person's work that was presented somewhere, or whether it is to discuss about the prospects of being a collaborator with them, or even joining their lab or whatever it be. Just feel free to always say that like I would love to get on a call with you to discuss more about it. And the worst it could come is like they wouldn't actually agree to get on a call, or they might not even mention or not address that particular part of the email. But it's always good to put it out there so that if they would be finding your email interesting and worthwhile, they will definitely get in touch with you. And probably you never know where that call can take you. So that would be always good. Nikita, you want to add something?
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about ChatGPT as a tool. So back then, when we started research assistant positions or navigating or anything with cold emailing, the ChatGPT didn't exist. So ChatGPT was a very recent thing. And for me, honestly, the tool is not for understanding knowledge or for plagiarism by any chance. It's mostly for getting it reviewed. So for example, I use ChatGPT as a review tool, nothing else. I don't use it for, oh, let's put this content, because I don't think ChatGPT is that smart compared to my human brain. But anyhow, so what I would do is I would usually give it a prompt saying, hey, review my cold email and tell me if any changes you want to do. Note that this cold email is to be sent to a professor in this lab. And I would give a little more specific background so it understands that this is the content that it could get. And usually ChatGPT gives me different prompts and gives me answers on what I'm asking. And so this is one of my prompt. And this is Munna's prompt. And he asked about, just navigating through what are CV or cold email that he would have put. And so I feel like it's important in the kind of wording that you're putting, like ChatGPT is like a good assistant for reviewing, but I don't think it's something that you could use for grammatical errors. I would strictly tell you that it was nice to play around with words. Like the more specific you are, the more better it is, because, if like, I'll give you an example of how different it could be with both of our prompts if we were to put it, and how much what you say matters. And other thing is, I don't think it's a tool that you could use for searching papers or anything, or just a summary. I don't think that is a tool that you want to go for, especially if you're into research, because trust your brain. Trust me, you should trust your brain than ChatGPT. So actually, this was just a GIF. I don't know why it's not playing. Anyway, so what we'll do right now is I will quickly stop sharing my screen and I will go back to sharing my ChatGPT screen. Let me know if you're able to see my screen. Are you able to see my screen? Just give me 1 minute. Oops.
Yeah, we can see your Google.
Yeah.
The whole
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so this is a prompt that I'm going to put on ChatGPT saying, I'm writing a cold email template to email a few professors that I'm interested in working with as a research assistant. Could you review and tell me if there are any changes and how it sounds? So I'm going to use a cold email template that I have. I will also be sharing this as a resource, by the way, later, so you can just go through it. But I have a template, by the way, that I made available for the public. So for now, I'm just going to copy paste that just to show you what a prompt could be like and what the kind of answers it could give. So just for example, I have put this and I put enter. So to give you a little background of my template, I just wrote a quick template on a professor that I had, reached out to for getting a remote research position. And these are the things that I included in it. And, you could go back and read a little bit more, but I gave a little explanation on myself, my background, some papers I was interested in, some things that I'm experienced with, and, would love to get on a call and all those details. And so now I have to ChatGPT to review it and tell me how is the review and if it has any changes. So this is ChatGPT's prompt to it. It just changed everything. Because I told it to review and tell me any changes, it just changed things and for me. So I think it did minor changes. So this is what it came. So because I didn't specify to it that review with pointers or give me pointers for where I could change, this is the kind of response we'd get. This is another prompt that we wanted to give you. Like if you were writing another prompt with another wording, like, oh, could you review this and tell me how it sounds and if there are any changes, then what it could be like, let's see. Just going to go it quickly. So here you go. So when you ask ChatGPT to review it and tell it how it sounds, the response was different. It gave you a review saying, overall, your cold email looks well written, conveys interest in working, but here are some changes. And it gave you specific pointers as to where you can change and what you could do. And so you need to be, I think, very, very clever and importantly look at the kind of keywords you're using and the tone that you're talking to ChatGPT, because different answers could go different reviews. But I would suggest you to try and ask ChatGPT or AI tools to ask how does it sound and what are the kind of changes you could have instead of for it to write for you, because when it writes for you, it does not know your context. One second, it does not know the experience you come with, and there could be a lot of errors. And so when you're copy pasting it, it could sound really, really bad. So coming back to my slides.
In between, if I might add a couple of
Yes.
things. So even with ChatGPT, like Nikita said, you shouldn't actually entirely copy paste. But one thing I would personally suggest is also that after like now, if you saw initially in the first prompt that Nikita showed, it literally re-edited the whole thing and gave you. And while the second one, it gave us a certain preview saying what are the comments, and then it again did a like the ChatGPT gave its own version of the cold email. So you can definitely read the cold email that ChatGPT has given you, but if you feel like certain sentences has been framed better or something like that, you can copy that element. But as a whole, if you try to copy it, it's going to be sounding horrible sometimes, and it might not even make sense sometimes. You never know, maybe ChatGPT has condensed some parts of your cold email and had put it one single sentence for it, but then when you put it together, it might just don't make sense. So you would want to actually go and revisit and re-edit again to to give it a human feel after all. Yeah. So this takes to another section of the possibilities of being in academia and what you can do following certain conferences and stuff. One thing that's popping up majorly is big team science. So big team science, it's kind of a major thing in academia right now, and also since few decades. Academia genuinely runs through collaborative ideas and efforts. It's not one person's idea. It's always a particular person's idea that's been supported and refurbished and polished by another person with more experience or a different experience, and all those kind of things. So it's not ever one person job. It's always collaborative effort. And one thing that we all believe in is also diversity and inclusion practices in science. This also this can be two part. One part is definitely the people involved in science, their representational stuff, but also one thing that one another part of diversity and inclusion practices also definitely giving value to non-weird findings. By weird we mean Western educated and all those kind of things. So like findings from those countries are more prominent, and the diversity aspect of a lot of findings, especially in social sciences, are not much there. But here I have put three examples which are a little more, although there are so many examples in terms of social sciences, I have put certain examples that happened. For example, Human Connective project that happened a few years ago, and it almost ended if I'm not wrong. And there they looked at collating samples of brain and the imaging tools from like different countries and different spaces and different labs. And Blue Brain project is something that happened in terms of mouse brain, and they wanted to bring imaging together like that. And then coming to the third one, which is MB3 NIRS, which is a project under Many Babies Consortium. This is a project that works on understanding rule learning through FNIRS, the functional near infrared recording. So their project is a little more on the cognitive neuroscience area, while the other two projects are more on like core qualitative and quantitative neuroscience. Coming to one other important part for our mental health in academia, definitely scheduling and saying no is something that we all need to reiterate and check up on others also in academia. Like any other places or any other situations, here also consent matters. It's not talked about much, but consent definitely do matter when it comes to being in academia and taking up work and stuff. So this is a model called the Fry's model of consent, which is being popularly known and popularly being spread to explain what consent means. Consent means freely given. So freely given is like you are taking time out on your own, and also it is coming from within. That, like, for example, do I want to attend this particular conference, or do I want to give certain presentation? Do I want to collaborate with this particular team? All this kind of things should come from within. Nobody should force anybody to be part of any project or any work or even any task in academia. One other thing is it's always reversible. For example, we all know, like in academia, and people who are aspiring postbac researchers or like grad students or even high school students who are planning to go to college, they all might be having different trajectories when they get into certain life transitions in their life, or even when their roles change, or even the roles, duties, and responsibilities change. So we always need to leave room for a reversible change in scheduling things or agreeing to take part in certain things. So it should always be reversible, and definitely it should be informed. By informed, it also means that it's always a two-way street. You would want to know what kind of work that you are signing up for, what all kind of things you expect, what all things they expect. So it's basically on open communication, and it should be enthusiastic. That is like you are really, really into doing this particular collaboration or this particular work or attending the conference. If you are like, okay, I don't mind doing it, you probably shouldn't do it. You should do it because you really want to do it, and it should be very specific. And by specific, it again comes back to the open communication part, specifically what you need to learn out of it, what are the benefits it could bring. And one another good way to go about is pro and con analysis. That's something that me and Nikita use most of the time while deciding what to sign up for and what not to sign up for. And yeah, so consent matters everywhere, even in academia. That is like in one shot, everything. Nikita.
So saying no is important and it's not a bad thing. So as an undergrad, when I was trying to, just joining in research, I remember everything seemed fascinating to me, including parts where I might not get credit for. It just seemed like, yeah, you know what, experience matters. It's completely all right. But I think saying no is okay and it's important because you can get burnt out sometimes, and you could also go through a lot. I mean, when you're a junior researcher, you just have to start realizing that your time is also valuable and it's not just all about exposure. I remember, in my undergrad, there was this researcher who was doing this amazing research, and she told me, I won't be able to credit you. I'm so sorry, or I can't give you a co-authored paper, but you will be helping out in 10 other tasks that actually do contribute to co-authorship. And I remember saying yes to it because I felt like, oh no, if I say no to her, what would she feel like? Or is that a bad thing because I'm just starting out? But as I grew up and I realized that now as a researcher, when I'm able to actually handle a lot of co-authorships and I'm able to give it off to others, junior researchers, I realized that I asked them that, hey, these are the kind of conditions. Would you be willing to do it? And it's okay to say no. So, please say no if it gets overwhelming. It's okay to say no to things. And it's pretty healthy and it goes a long way, because I think I learned that in the hardest way after getting burnt out. Because Munna and me, by the way, have worked in a similar lab for about a year. And I remember having a support system meant the world to me. And, I would take up a lot of projects because I was very enthusiastic, which is not a bad thing. It just means that you're passionate, you're keen. But when you're also passionate and keen, there comes a point where you can get burnt out and you can have too many things to handle, and then saying no becomes tough because you're taking on things. So it's okay to take some time off and say no to things. So another pointer that I wanted to specifically add was scheduling. I know scheduling works very different for everybody. For me, I'm a calendar person. I use a lot of Google products at this point. I use Google Sheets, Google Documents, Google Calendars. I run on Google basically. And so if I don't have Google for sometimes, I'm a little lost. But I know scheduling works very different for other people. It does not just mean scheduling on calendars or to-do lists. It just means allotting time for things. And why specifically we are talking about this is because as a junior researcher, taking out time for yourself can be something that you might just miss out because either you're too passionate and you're just into a lot of things, or because you're focusing on your grad applications and you're like, oh no, as an undergrad I need to have this, I need to have that, which is important. But taking and allotting some time for yourself becomes super important, especially when you're in academia. I think it's okay to take some time off, and it is important to. Yeah, my calendar looks very messy because I haven't taken time for myself, and which is why I have a calendar that reminds me take off time. So scheduling, I think, really works, because I think scheduling helps you allot time for certain things, including work that you shouldn't be doing out of the work hours. So I want to talk more about now as a disabled in academia. So this is something that I would definitely want to talk a little more and emphasize on, because one, this is the Disability Pride Month, and I'm so happy to be around amazing allies and a community that has supported me throughout the past 1 to 2 years. I have had a really kind of bad experience in academia, with being disabled, because I've had my own discriminatory experiences with it, but I'm navigating and trying to be as strong and loud as I can. And this is the disabled flag, and I've just put out what each of these colors mean because it's super important for this month. So I'm just going to keep that there. So as being a disabled in academia, or just coming under community, it just means that be loud, it's your right. So the reason I'm talking about this is because I don't know how many of you are actually there who are disabled students, but I know that when I was an undergrad, saying the word disabled meant to me that, oh, I will be put with, like tags like, oh, she's weak, or she's limited in the way she can utilize her energy. And I remember feeling bad because I do twice more hard work than the non-disabled people in my life. And so, it's okay to be loud, and it is your right. It is important to recognize that you cannot let someone discriminate at you because you're disabled. So I think it's very important, especially in academia, to not let anybody tell you that, hey, you can't do this task because of that. And it's okay to ask for accommodations. It does not make you less than a researcher. Again, something that took me a lot of time to understand, because when I used to work in labs, I didn't realize that asking accommodation meant, I used to feel bad about it, that, oh no, I want something special from other people, which is not honestly special. It's just me wanting accommodations for my challenges that I have. That does not mean my work is affected. That does not mean I would not do work. And that does not definitely mean that I'm lazy. And so these pointers took me some time, because having a community around can be sometimes tough to find. There aren't a lot of disabled researchers, sadly, in the field. And I wish and I hope I can inspire the upcoming high schoolers and undergrads who are disabled to go ahead and realize that your right matters and that it's important to be as loud as possible. So being disabled made me feel very guilty at some point in academia, because it's less spoken about. I feel like disabled in academia is not a topic that's spoken a lot, but thankfully the session is happening in July, and I get that, privilege to talk more about it and my experiences. And as I went ahead and got, terrible with all the research experiences that I had with accommodations, I realized that it was not wrong to be loud. It is good to ask for accommodations, and it is important, to talk as loud as possible about it. It is your right. And I did feel guilty also. I still actually feel guilty. It's been about, I guess, 2 to 3 years I'm in academia now, and I still feel guilty every now and then for being disabled, because there are things that I have challenges with. There are limitations that I can't do. Like, for example, for me, I go through something called arthritis, and so I was diagnosed at 18 for it. It's been about 7 to 8 years of chronic pain, and so colleagues that are non-disabled could sit for hours on a chair and keep typing. But for someone like me that has a mobility issue, I have like pain in my joints in my hands, it means that I can't type for more than 2, 3 hours, or I can't do tasks for a long stretch. And I would start feeling guilty for being disabled. And it's okay to feel this, you're feeling guilty, but this is not on you. So this is something that I really wanted to mention. So Munna, it's on you.
So these are a bunch of personally relevant information that we are going to share. I know there have been a lot of insights based on what we have experienced in the past, but this is going to be a little more truth bomb situations. So for example, one thing with me is like, I want to reiterate is everybody have their own journey in academia, and you will have yours in your own way. So for example, if I have to tell about myself, I finished my undergraduate degree in psychology with an honors certification, like in 2021 from India. Then I joined for a clinical master's degree because that time I wanted to also work on becoming a mental health practitioner. But then 1 month, almost a month into it, I realized my calling is more in academia than being a practitioner. I don't have anything against the practitioner community by any chance. It's just my personal preference, and I feel like academia resonates more with me. And because of that, I dropped out after a month of my master's degree, and then I joined Accident Brain Research Lab, where I am still affiliated to. I am still part of Accident Brain Research Lab, where I conduct independent EEG related and heart rate variability related project on emotion recognition. And I have been doing that for 2 years. And so around like almost by completing 1 year in accident, I also had I was blessed with the offer for an amazing master's in research program in developmental neuroscience and psychopathology at UCL and Yale University. But unfortunately, due to financial barriers, I couldn't pursue it. I had a lot of other reasons. I mean, I had a lot of reasons why I should be doing it, including the peer support I got from people, including Nikita. But money is a big deal, and I had to turn that offer down solely because of the financial issues. But around the same time, when I was turning down the offer, I began working at Stanford and also Mini BB's consortium, which is a big science team that I work for. At those also developmental neuroscience is something that resonates with me so much, and I really always believe that I have to go back to there. Um, I think I learned and stepped up and upskilled myself a lot through my RA positions, and that's when I actually unlearned the fact that my age is going to be nothing. I constantly used to remind myself like, hey, I'm just 21 or 22. And but that was also in a way of me coping that okay, maybe I am out of academia, I'm out of an academic degree, and I used to guilt trip myself for that. But um but I think like joining into these amazing organizations, joining on these amazing organizations and upskilling myself wouldn't come if I haven't actually taken the first hard step of leaving my postgraduate degree in India and also turning down this offer. And so that also comes to the point that there's no right time to begin or end roles or learning. And learning is an unending process. You will learn different things at different point in time. Maybe for sometimes, if you're fortunate enough, you would learn at the right time when you need it. Sometimes you might learn it the hard way or the way that takes a lot of time for you. Let's go to the next slide. So, with respect to what I have been through all these years of like 2 years in academia, like or almost 2 to 3 years outside education, like a formal education, I think consistent commitment and open communication goes a long way. This also, again, I learned the hard way. It's not about putting all your eggs in one basket. It's sometimes of dividing things in a strategic manner so that you can ensure that learning happens. Learning through conferences without presenting also should be appreciated, because a lot of people have the thought that if I have to take part in a conference, I should also probably be from the field, or in fact have some research to present there. You don't need to have that. You can join as an attendee and still explore yourself. So in the beginning, I mentioned about exploring my interest, and that helped me zero down to my interest right now, right? So similar thing. So I think conferences are a hotspot for ideas in science and your niche. no matter if you're newbie to the particular area or if you're taking a whole different career switch or like a uh, change in your area of work, you can always go to conferences if you have the energy and also the will to attend and learn more. So that would be an amazing place to start. uh, Also keep you updated about what kind of things happen around. And this also brings us to the point that learning is and also should be very subjective than objective in nature, because from a South Asian country wherein your marks are very much held important, and like being having grown up in a certain culture, it has definitely taken a toll on me that my marks reflect a lot of things. Uh, I was a nerd in my own ways, but then that doesn't explain anything that I'm having the potential to do, because learning can happen outside a test, a quiz, or an exam. It can always happen in your own way. This is something that research taught me, because learning happens in your own way. It should happen in your own way. This is again a privilege. If you are outside of formal education, you can exercise that. Once you're done with an undergraduate degree, probably you won't have a lot of restraints. You can choose to go where you want to go and what you want to do. And I think people who are in their undergraduate degree right now, or they are almost done with the degree, should take a note of that, because formal education comes with a lot of limitations, but once you're out of it, it's not going to be the same. That could be challenging, but still you'll be okay with it. Yeah. Next is again slow and steady growth, than one steady spurt of growth. This is in terms of value, it's not in terms of anything else. You can learn the different things simultaneously, that's all fine. But when it comes to your career growth, or you investing your time and energy in things, you would want to rather take a slow and steady path than like jumping into a lot of things without considering its seriousness, or without even processing enough. Because in this era when mental health is a lot talked about, we should also take a step back and think whether you want to do certain things, and prioritizing things are always important. So slowly invest in small things that you are interested in, or like one big thing that you're really interested in, and start from there. So everybody will start at some point, so you might want to actually start with something small, a couple of things small, or even one big thing. It's on to you, and it depends totally on you. And again, few things at a time, but working on them and polishing them are also a worthy practice. Like for example, I said during my like the previous slide, that I have been working in this lab for 2 years, and I have been doing the same project that I started 2 years ago, but still I'm investing my energy and time into that project. Also because I have been polishing my research so much, and this also comes with learning. And at one point I realized, okay, I should probably add this also to my study. And a later point I realized maybe I should take this off of my study. So this keeps on happening, but it's a the more time you invest into it, it always gonna come into real quality. By more time, I also mean mindful, like spending time mindfully. Like you have to be very mindful of the time that you spend on certain stuff. So that also brings with a lot of that will also bring a lot of understanding and insights on what I should do next, and what will keep me going, and what should be the practices I should stop right away or sooner. Also, when it comes to research interest, like since a lot of people might be navigating through navigating how to pin down their research interest, this is something that you would want to take a look at. It's always okay to be in the gray areas of your research interest than putting yourself in a box, because that's where the uniqueness lies, right? I mean, for example, I am interested in, like I said, social relationships and morality, but and a lot of US labs, like US based labs, work on a behavioral aspect of these particular variables. But there are also a few labs that works on the neural part of it as well. So for me, it's a challenge. Like even when I'm considering for grad school, it could be a little bit challenging for me because I have very limited options if I want to fit both of the aspects of neuroscience and also developmental psychology together, right? So for longest of time, I was really sad that how I'm interested in both neuroscience and also I'm interested in developmental psychology. But then right now I have reached this place where I'm accepted of my gray area of interest, and I think that's what makes my research unique, and my plans for ahead also unique. So yeah, slow and steady, and it's fine. Next.
So just a couple of final thoughts, and we're going to wrap up with the session, at least from our side, is that being a researcher is pretty rewarding. I think the reason why we're also talking about our experiences is because because, it is so important to share, especially, when you're a junior researcher, to just keep hearing from researchers that have experiences and be navigating it, because I think just sharing experiences is also a way of getting some knowledge. So being a researcher will always be for me rewarding. Research takes time. Something that my brain could not process for the longest time is to take time. Like when I was in the same lab as Munna, he would always tell me, you're taking a lot of things. It's okay for you to slow down, because research takes time. And I think that is something as a junior researcher that nobody tells, because we're always chasing things like, okay, one paper to another, one task to another, but we don't sit back and we actually look into it and understand the crux of it. So research takes time. And it's okay to feel anxious and nervous when approaching advisors, researchers. Like, I know when I was reaching out to this, to give you an example, to reaching out to this current NYU professor that I'm currently working with, it took me 7 months. It took me 7 months to get in touch with her, because I was so afraid of what she would think about me. And I was pretty anxious about it. But, you never know. You should just take your chances. And it's okay to feel anxious and nervous, because I think it's a good thing. It means that you really want something to work out, and hence you're feeling the anxiety and, you're nervous. Like I said, it's okay to say no. It's completely fine. Your accommodations are important and they matter. If you are someone that has challenges, it's okay to talk about it and say, hey, this is the accommodation that I will need, but it does not make or reflect you as a person that's bringing things on table. These are two different things. And if you're interested in something, go for it, because what's the worst thing that could happen? You might just get a rejection email. It's okay. I guess opportunities keep coming your way. So these are some resources of the things that we spoke about. I've just put those links. I think you'll get the PDF shared with you on the slides. And thank you. And you can have any questions, let us know. I think we ran out of more time. But yeah, that's about us.
Thank you so much for this insightful presentation. I personally am a high school student and I have learned so much on setting ground for the way forward. But unfortunately, because of time, we may not be able to continue the Q&A session. I'd like to appreciate each and every one of you for attending and learning something so amazing. So thank you, Nikita. Thank you, Muna. You guys are inspiring and you have done such amazing works in your field of study. Yeah, so I think we can conclude from here, and I hope you all have a nice day, evening, morning, wherever you are.